Hey guys, it's Miss Best. I'm going to do something a little different today. Instead of doing the first chapter, I'm actually going to read y'all the whole book. We got in our shipment of Sequoia books, and they have already flown off the shelves. But I did keep these back because I wanted to read these to you. So the first one we're going to do is Beanie and the Banshee. So this is one that you have to test in Google Classroom. So when we are done, you can go test. Alright, so we have some different characters here. Everybody in Ireland knows that banshees are supernatural harbingers of doom. But what most people don't realize is that young banshees, who are called bansheenies, by the way, don't just appear. They are grown in pods on the underside of a ferry bridge. When their pod becomes transparent, the bansheenie will bond with the first human they see. And now the bansheenie knows everything about that person, including when they will die. And then the bansheenie's only job is to appear in front of their person and howl the banshees howl at them. This might sound a bit creepy, but Irish folk know all about banshees and are generally grateful for the heads up, which gives them a few days to give farewell hugs or do that one job they've been meaning to do for ages, or reconnect with someone they fell out with over something silly. Unfortunately, at the very moment, the bansheenie from this story spotted her human, a girl with a red streak in her hair named Rose. Her pod was knocked loose from the ferry bridge and it dropped into the waterlogged ditch. This was all before the bansheenie could bond with her human and absorb the information she needed. Uh-oh. The bansheenie bobbed in the water for weeks before she grew big enough to hatch out of the pod. Occasionally, she caught sight of the girl, Rose, through the thicket, but mostly she saw only water. At first, the bansheenie was scared and cold, but then she realized the water was actually made of living, teeny tiny atom fish. She learned to understand the atom fish. They sang to her of a time millions of years ago when they had been trapped in glacier ice or boiled to vapor on desert stones. Not dessert. I'm hungry. The atom fish also named her Beanie, teasing her that she was no larger than a bean, even though Beanie soon grew to be the size of a kitten. Beanie, it had to be said, was an unusually merry name for a bansheenie, who generally received grim names like Groanswipe or Direcleave. But Beanie was the very first bansheenie to be named by atomfish, and atomfish are happy creatures. Beanie might have stayed with her fish friends forever, but one day, through the water, she finally got a proper look at her human. And then Beanie realized, I don't know when Rose will die. Because Beanie's pod had been knocked loose, their bonding had been interrupted, so all Beanie knew was that the girl's name was Rose. This made Beanie very sad because a bansheenie's sole purpose on Earth is to deliver the bad news to their person. So she said goodbye to her atomfish friends and climbed out from under the ferry bridge that was her home. She needed to know more about Rose. Beanie followed the girl across the country lane and stood in the garden hedge of a place called Clover Cottage, where Rose lived. Hiding, Beanie watched Rose. She learned that Rose was a happy girl and was always talking, even when there was no one there to listen. Except me. I'm listening, Beanie thought. Truth be told, Beanie didn't need to hide, as Rose would not be able to see her until Beanie howled the banshee's howl. And she would not do that until the cloud of doom appeared over Rose's head, which was the signal that the girl was about to die. But until then, Beanie was comforted by the feel of branches on her cheeks and waterlogged mud squelching between her toes. She watched Rose for months as the flowers grew, as the frost turned the petals to crystal, as winter stripped the hedges back to gaunt branches, and as Beanie watched, she learned about Rose. Beanie learned that Rose loved her mom and dad almost as much as they loved her. She learned that Rose's hair tied itself up in terrible tangles if it wasn't brushed every day. She saw how much Rose loved to dance. She found out that Rose scratched her nose just before she fell asleep. Beanie tutted when Rose pretended to have a sore tummy so she wouldn't have to go grocery shopping. And she realized that green was Rose's favorite color, and she wore it every day. Green, just like me, thought Beanie. And day by day, Beanie grew to love Rose more and more, which was not how Bansheenies usually felt about their humans. Normally, being a Bansheenie was just a job, and Beanie was not supposed to care about Rose herself. But she did care. She cared a lot. This was because the Atomfish had loved her, and creatures who are loved will pass on that love. And so now Beanie wanted more than anything to pass her love on to Rose. One morning, Beanie went to visit with the Atomfish. The Atomfish were happy to see their Bansheenie friend, but sad too, because they were leaving. Leaving? Said Beanie. Where are you going? The river will flood tomorrow, dear Beanie, the fish sang. It will be the wildest storm in over a century, and we will be swept down to the sea. But don't worry, different Atomfish will come in our place, and someday we will return again. Beanie lay back in the ditch water to hug her friends goodbye. It will be nice to make new friends, she thought. But then she suddenly realized something. I wonder what she realized. Clover Cottage is between the river and the ditch. It will be washed away. Oh no, Rose! Beanie ran to the cottage's garden to find Rose already in the window, lining her dolls up on the sill. Beanie stared at the girl, but no cloud of doom appeared over Rose's head. I cannot see the cloud of doom, because we did not bond the Banshee way, thought Beanie. There was only one thing to do. Beanie decided that she would try her very first Banshee howl, just in case. So she took a deep breath and howled until her eyes felt like they might pop out of her head. But it was not the Banshee's howl. A Banshee's howl was supposed to be ghastly and make Beanie visible to her person. But this howl was so cute and musical that blackbirds, who are sensitive creatures, gathered in the garden to listen. Rose, however, did not hear. She did not even raise her head. I failed, thought Beanie. I have one job to do in this life, and I can't do it. Beanie reckoned that maybe her Banshee magic had not developed because she had hatched underwater. I can neither howl the Banshee's howl nor see the cloud of doom, she thought. What could she do now? Because she loved Rose, Beanie decided that she would not give up. Beanie found her way into Rose's cottage. She howled in the bedroom while Rose practiced her Irish dancing. Ow! She howled in the kitchen while Rose was eating a banana. Ow! She howled in the hallway while Rose walked along a line of flowers in the carpet. Ow! But Rose did not hear the howls, and Beanie thought her heart would burst from trying. Perhaps Rose is not in danger, she thought. Perhaps this is all for nothing. But she believed the Atomfish were telling the truth, and she had enough banshee in her bones to know that Rose was in mortal peril. Perhaps, thought Beanie, I should try howling on the fairy bridge. After all, that's where a banshee's magic comes from. And so, when Rose appeared, Beanie was waiting and howled as though her life depended on it. Please notice me, she wished, but Rose didn't. I don't even really want to howl, Beanie realized, because I love Rose and I don't want her to die. Beanie stood very still. No, she didn't want to howl. She wanted to sing. The Atomfish had passed on their love to her through song, and now she would do the same with Rose. Beanie was the first Bansheenie to ever sing, so her voice trembled and was too soft for Rose to hear. But the Atomfish heard and joined in, and together their voices were so strong and full of love that the fairy bridge itself hummed, and a wonderful bloom of magic was released into the air. Hello, Rose said, not even a little afraid. Are you a banshee? I'm Beanie the Banshee, said Beanie. Did my song make you notice me? Yes, said Rose. It was beautiful. Then she pointed at Beanie's heart. And I heard your heart beating. You have a strong heart. Beanie's heart was beating with so much love for Rose that she could hear it in her own ears. Am I going to die? Rose asked. Beanie was about to answer yes, but then, as she was the first of her kind to ever talk to Atomfish or human girls, or learn about her human from watching them, or find her heart beating with love for all her friends, she said, Do you remember how you pretended to have a sore tummy, Rose? Rose did remember. I really didn't want to go to the grocery store. It smells like onions. Well, what if you did want to go somewhere? Uh-oh, I see a plan hatching. The next morning, 10 inches of rain fell in 2 hours. 10 inches doesn't sound like very much, but it was the most rainfall ever recorded in the valley by quite a lot. The river burst its banks and fiercely swept down Clover Valley toward the ocean, bearing most of the rocks, hay bales, clover, walls, and gates along in its foaming currents. Clover Cottage was the only house in the valley, and it filled with water like a cooking pot until its roof popped off and was swept away in the flood. If Rose and her family had been inside, they would have surely drowned. But the family was not inside. Rose had woken her parents at dawn, complaining of a sharp pain in her back tooth. Nothing would calm her down except a promise that her entire family bring her up the mountain to the dentist as soon as the sun peeked over the hill. Once the torrential rain began to fall, everyone, including Rose, forgot about her tooth, And when the flood thundered down Clover Valley, Rose danced around in circles singing, "Beanie, Beanie, Beanie the Bansheenie." And she did not stop, even when the roof popped off the cottage. "We are so lucky no one was in there," said Rose's mom. But someone was in there. Uh-oh. Who was it? Beanie the Bansheenie. For Beanie, the flood was like a fairground ride, and she dived, dipped, and swooped, surrounded by her Atom Fish friends, who pleaded with her to come with them. "We will show you wonders, dear Beanie," they said. "You will see the world as the water sees it." Beanie was not tempted. "No, thank you, friends," she replied. "I have a job to do." It had felt so wonderful to warn Rose about danger that Beanie decided her job was not to deliver bad news, but rather to keep the little girl safe and well. "I will need to learn all the earth's songs," she decided. "I must sing with the wind, the stones, and the flames. For the elements, everything is a cycle, even if that cycle is 1,000 years long, so they can tell me when danger is near." And she did learn the songs of the elements. The Atom Fish introduced her to the stone mites, who told her all about the wind worms, who were cousins of the fire weevils. When Clover Cottage was rebuilt, Beanie continued to protect Rose from storms, fires, floods, and hurricanes, and through the years they became inseparable. That word was hard. And when Rose married a carpenter named Peter, Beanie was at the wedding. Later, when Rose and Peter had the twins, whom they named Benny and Beanie, the original Beanie looked after them too. And so it went down through the years, with Beanie caring for generations of Rose's family as best she could, making sure they were safe from the perils of the natural world. And because she never howled the banshee's howl, she stayed a Bansheenie forever, a Bansheenie who loved. When her original Atom Fish returned from their around-the-world trip, they found Beanie waiting for them in the gorse bush, and to their surprise, her stories were even better than their own. The end. I hope you liked Beanie the Bansheenie. I thought this was a very cute story. All right, go test.